Wars are remembered by their noise, the artillery, the explosions, the speeches delivered after the smoke clears. History loves sound because sound is emotional. Sound is human. But war does not begin with sound. It begins in silence, in rooms without windows, in documents no one votes on, in accounting decisions that never appear on ballots. Long before the first soldier moves, something else moves first. Money. Not as cash, not as coins, but as capacity. Capacity to borrow. Capacity to promise. Capacity to postpone consequences. History prefers dramatic causes, assassinations, ideologies, hate. These stories are comfortable because they assign blame to people. But systems do not run on emotion. They run on balance. Inputs and outputs. Revenue and obligation. Promises and limits. And when balance breaks, violence enters the equation. Not because anyone desires it, but because the system has exhausted every other option. When governments can no longer fund themselves honestly, when taxation reaches political limits, when debt grows faster than productivity, when credibility erodes quietly, war stops being madness. It becomes policy. Not publicly, not immediately. First, it is unthinkable. Then, it is whispered. Then, it is framed as inevitable. Every major war follows this pattern. Not because leaders are uniquely evil, but because systems are rigid. And rigid systems do not bend. They break. Empires are not built by strength alone. They are built by financing endurance. Rome did not dominate the ancient world because it had superior weapons. Many of its enemies fought just as fiercely. Rome dominated because it could pay soldiers consistently, year after year, campaign after campaign, generation after generation. But Rome paid with the future. As expansion slowed, revenue flattened. As costs rose, coins were diluted. Silver quietly disappeared from circulation. No announcement was made. No crisis declared. Trust eroded slowly. Inflation is never loud at first. It whispers. The same whisper echoed centuries later in Spain. New World silver poured into Europe, creating the illusion of infinite wealth. Spain financed wars across continents, armadas, armies, empires. For a moment, it looked unstoppable. Then prices surged. Domestic industry collapsed. Debt piled up faster than silver arrived. Silver destroyed the empire that silver built. Britain watched carefully. It learned that hoarding metal was not enough. So Britain built something new: credit. The Bank of England transformed war financing forever. Debt became organized. Markets absorbed conflict costs. Britain could lose battles and still win wars. But credit does not remove limits. It delays them. By the early 20th century, Britain's empire existed largely on confidence. 2 world wars did not destroy Britain's power. They revealed that it had already been spent. Healthy systems are allowed to fail. Bad investments collapse. Excess debt clears. Pain is concentrated, and then absorbed. But large systems are not allowed to fail. Failure becomes political. Failure becomes unacceptable. Banks become systemically important. Governments become too big to collapse. At that moment, correction becomes dangerous. So it is postponed. Debt is extended. Money is distorted. Reality is delayed. This is the moment war becomes useful. World War I did not erupt because Europe wanted destruction. It erupted because Europe could no longer afford peace. Gold-backed money could not finance mechanized slaughter. So governments suspended the rules. They printed claims instead of value, borrowed from the unborn, promised repayment they knew would never come. The war consumed the contradiction. World War II completed the process. By 1945, Europe was not merely destroyed, it was financially hollow. No reserves, no leverage, no alternatives. And hollow systems do not resist redesign. Napoleon conquered Europe with armies. Britain conquered the aftermath with finance. When the cannons fell silent, Britain could still lend, still insure, still settle trade. Napoleon had land. Britain had liquidity. Germany's defeat after World War I was not sealed at Versailles. It was sealed in its currency. Hyperinflation erased savings. The middle class collapsed. Political extremism flourished. Military defeat can be survived. Financial annihilation cannot. This lesson shaped the 20th century more than any battlefield. By World War II, leaders understood something terrifyingly clear. Whoever designs the financial system after the war controls the peace. And peace is where real power lives. In 1944, while the war was still burning, something far more permanent was being planned. The future was decided not on a battlefield, but in a quiet hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. No explosions, no crowds, no democratic vote. Only economists, bankers, and diplomats, designing a system for a world that did not yet exist. Europe was bankrupt. Asia was shattered. Gold was concentrated in one place. The United States did not conquer the world militarily. It inherited it financially. Bretton Woods did not end war. It reorganized power. Currencies would orbit the dollar. The dollar would orbit gold. Institutions would replace empires. The IMF, the World Bank. They were presented as neutral, technical, benevolent. But neutrality is a luxury of the powerful. Loans came with conditions. Stability came with compliance. Sovereignty became negotiable. This was not colonialism with flags. It was colonialism with spreadsheets. And it worked. Because systems do not provoke rebellion immediately. They offer order first. Before the 20th century, wars ended. Armies returned home. Budgets reset. Debts were forgiven or defaulted. After Bretton Woods, war changed character. It became continuous. Not always violent, not always visible, but always present. The Cold War was not a single conflict. It was a financial endurance test. Two systems racing to prove sustainability. The United States did not need to win every war. It needed to remain solvent longer than its rival. The Soviet Union did not collapse because it lost battles. It collapsed because its economy could not absorb prolonged strain. Military spending exposed financial weakness. Debt reveals truth faster than ideology. From that moment on, conflict became structural. Wars justified budgets. Budgets justified borrowing. Borrowing justified monetary expansion. Peace became dangerous. Because peace forces accounting, and accounting reveals limits. Today, war rarely begins with invasion. It begins with exclusion. From payment systems, from capital markets, from insurance, from credit. Sanctions are not moral tools. They are financial weapons. A modern state can survive military losses, but it cannot survive isolation from liquidity. Currencies collapse faster than armies. Inflation destabilizes societies without firing a single shot. This is cheaper than war, cleaner than war, more effective than war. And once used, it cannot be undone. The world now operates inside a financial architecture where tension is permanent. Because stability requires trust. Trust requires discipline. Discipline requires pressure. War is no longer a failure of diplomacy. It is a feature of the system. Here is the truth history rarely admits. The global financial system was not designed to prevent war. It was designed to survive it. Conflict absorbs excess. War resets balance sheets. Crises justify intervention. Every generation is told the system is broken. But it isn't. It is functioning exactly as designed. The real question is not why wars keep happening. The real question is, what happens to a system that cannot tolerate peace? Because when war becomes structural, no victory is permanent. Only postponement. If war is built into the financial system, is peace even possible anymore? Comment your answer. History is written by systems, but debated by people.